Hi teachers, today I'm going to share with you my resource, Would You Survive Escaping Pompeii Simulation. So I wanted to walk you through what you would see if you were implementing this in your classroom. So this is the slideshow that you would project on the board. And it starts by kind of giving a little bit of background of what's going on. And in the simulation, your students are going to take on the role of Pompeian citizens as the disaster strikes. So they realize that they need to get out of the city. And how are they going to do that? What paths will they take? What are they going to take with them? Their decisions are going to affect their Vita, which is their health and survival points, and their fortune, which is their wealth and resources. And the goal of the simulation is to keep both of those numbers, their Vita and their fortune points, above 0. So the first thing that they're going to do, and this is the only part that you're not going to want to do in full screen, is you're going to have your students decide on their household profile. So for my students, I usually group them in groups of 3 or 4. And together they decide what their profile household will be. So let's say they choose baker of the red oven. So if that is their household, and it gives a little blurb about that household, and it shows that this household, the bakers, start with 4 fortune points and 6 Vita points. And each profile starts with a different amount of points, which could determine what they do and the choices that they make. Once your students have decided on their household profile, you're going to get a reminder, and they're going to make choices that could cost them money and resources, so fortune points, but it could also gain them Vita points or health points. And obviously the reverse is also true. Certain decisions could help them gain health or Vita points, but it might cost them some of their fortune points. And depending on how many points they're starting with, they're going to make different choices, because again, the goal is to keep both their Vita and their fortune above 0 in order to survive. So this is where the fun really begins. So there are 10 rounds total, and here's an example with round 1. So your students have to decide what route are they going to take to leave the city. So do they take the main road out of the city? It won't be the fastest route, so they might lose some Vita points, but they'll be able to travel with more supplies, which could possibly earn them some more fortune points. Option B, do they escape through the alleyway and the garden path? It's going to be quicker, so more Vita points, but they could have less supplies, or they might lose some of their supplies along the way, costing them some fortune points. Or do they wait for a friend who promised a cart, so they'll be able to take more supplies, have more fortune points, but they have to wait a while to do that? Your students will hold up signs, and I do have that included in the resource, or you could also use a whiteboard and have them write their starting Vita and fortune points, and then write their answer A, B, or C. Once they have locked in their choice, you'll go through the different options. So if they take the main roads, they would earn 3 Vita points, but also lose a fortune point, because along the way they get jostled and bumped by people and lose some of their fortune along the way. If they go with option B, taking the alleyway, they would gain 4 Vita points because it's narrow, so they're a little bit more protected, but along the way they'd lose some of their valuables. And then finally, if they wait for the cart, it's taking up precious time, so they would lose 2 Vita points, but they would be able to take more things with them, so they would get 4 fortune points. And so you would go through 10 rounds total. So here's the next round, for example, following kind of that same principle along the way. And at the very end, I'll show you here your last scenario. So scenario 10. So the final push, they have to decide, they're on the outer edge of Pompeii, and they need to decide, are they going to continue along the main road, which is option A, or are they going to take the aqueduct tunnel, which will shield them from some of the debris, but could be a little bit more risky? That is option B. So once again, they could lose or earn Vita and Fortune points along the way. And then finally, at the very end of the simulation, there's a little bit of a description of what actually happened with Pompeii. And from there, they have to find out the results. So they add their Vita and Fortune points together and decide if they didn't survive, if they barely survived, or if they thrived and were able to escape. I wanted to show you what the teacher resource actually looks like. So this is the PDF that you would receive, and it starts by giving you the teacher directions of what to print out and also some optional differentiation. You'll see that in step 5, giving some hints about which households are going to be slightly more challenging than others based on their starting Vita and Fortune points. From there, you obviously have access to the Google Slides presentation, but then this is what you could print out for the students for them to keep track of their Vita and Fortune points along the way. So after each round, they total up their points. There is also a terms to know page with some vocabulary terms that they will see along the way. So you could print that for each group. I usually print out one per group just so they have something to reference along the way throughout the simulation. And then finally, this is, I'd say the most valuable piece is the discussion that happens afterwards. So talking about not only decision making and kind of their process, but also applying it to what they learned about Pompeii and daily life in ancient Rome along the way as well. And also a little bit about the archaeology and what the ruins of Pompeii tell us today. And then finally, you also have the option cards. These are ones that you could print out for the students to hold